Level 1, Second Lieutenant, age 22. You are 22 years old, and you have just said the oath, not the one from movies. The real one. Flat fluorescent light, a room full of people who look as unready as you feel. Somewhere behind you, your family is holding a phone up to record it, and none of them understand yet what they just watched you agree to. You commissioned through the Academy, or ROTC, or a 90-day officer training course that felt like being taken apart and reassembled faster than a person should be. It doesn't matter which path brought you here. What matters is the gold bar now sitting on your shoulder and the fact that it means almost nothing yet, because the thing you actually want, a pilot training slot, hasn't been given to you. It's been promised. There's a difference, and you're about to learn it the slow way. You wait. Weeks of waiting dressed up as work, paperwork, physicals, a uniform that still smells new. You watch classmates get orders to security forces, to logistics, to career fields they didn't ask for, and you understand for the first time that the oath you took didn't come with a guarantee attached. And then, finally, a name gets called, a class number, a base you've never heard of, and you're in undergraduate pilot training, strapped into a T-6 at Texan 2 with an instructor who has flown this exact maneuver into 1,000 other students and still watches you like you might be the one who kills them both. The first solo happens fast and is over faster, one lap of the pattern, alone, the instructor's seat empty beside you for the first time in your life. The radio feels quieter with no one else breathing next to you. You land it. You taxi in shaking, hands doing something you didn't authorize them to do. People will ask you for the rest of your career what your first solo felt like, and you will never find the right words, because there aren't any that survive the retelling. There is only the fact that you did it, and the quieter fact, unspoken here, that the version of you standing on this runway has no idea what rank he is climbing toward, or what it will eventually cost him to get there. You don't know it yet, but you have just entered a machine with 9 more floors, and the last one is a room you cannot picture from here. Level 2, First Lieutenant, age 24. Undergraduate pilot training tries to kill dreams quietly, without ceremony. It doesn't expel you with a speech. It just stops giving you rides, reassigns your call sign to someone else's fate, and you find out over lunch, secondhand, that a classmate has washed out of the track he wanted. You watch him pack a room in an afternoon. Nobody talks about it directly. Everyone talks about it constantly. You don't wash out. You make it, through Vance, or Columbus, or Laughlin, the 3 bases that have turned generations of second lieutenants into first lieutenants with wings, and you stand at attention for assignment night, which is not a ceremony so much as an auction where you are both the bidder and the good being sold. Fighters go first. Fighters always go first. The room erupts every time a name gets a fighter jet. Applause and a little envy mixed together, and you sit there doing math nobody taught you how to do, watching slots disappear one by one, wondering if bombers are a door or a consolation prize. Assignment night runs on a formula nobody advertises out loud. Your class rank against your class's needs against whatever the whole Air Force happens to need that particular year, and you don't fully control any of the 3 variables. You can fly a perfect pattern and still lose to a number on a spreadsheet you'll never see. Your name gets called, not a fighter, a bomber track. You stand, you say something appropriately composed, you sit back down with wings freshly pinned on your chest, and a future you didn't design for yourself. A cover is not a disguise, a choice you didn't make is not a failure. It's just a door that happened to be open when the others weren't, and you walk through it because that's what the wings on your chest are for. Level 3, Captain, Pre-qualification, age 26. Whiteman Air Force Base does not look like the front of a recruiting poster. It looks like rural Missouri, flat land, quiet roads, a base gate that could belong to any installation in the country, and somewhere inside it sits an airplane most of the people who live near it have never seen up close. You arrive as a captain and discover that nobody hands you a B2 on day 1. Nobody hands you anything close to it. You are handed a chair, a stack of technical manuals thicker than anything you read at the academy, and months of academics and simulator time before you are permitted anywhere near the real aircraft. This is the 13th Bomb Squadron, the only formal training unit the Air Force has for this jet, the descendant of an older squadron, the 394th, that trained B-2 pilots under its own name for 22 years before the 2 units were folded into one in 2018. The older squadron's colors and history absorbed into the schoolhouse that still stands. Every qualified B-2 pilot in the entire Air Force has passed through this exact building, sat in this exact kind of chair, memorized systems diagrams until they stopped being diagrams and became instinct. The simulator sessions run for hours, and they are unforgiving in a specific way. You can die in them, professionally, without ever leaving the ground. An instructor fails an engine, floods a screen with warnings, watches how you sort real threats from noise, watches whether your hands shake on a machine that costs nothing to crash. You start to understand that this airplane doesn't reward instinct. It rewards procedure, memorized until it's reflex, because the aircraft you're being trained to fly is worth more than most buildings you'll ever stand in, and it does not forgive improvisation. Some nights you dream in checklists. The schoolhouse doesn't teach you to fly. You already know how to fly. It teaches you to be trusted with something this expensive, and trust, you're learning, is slower to build than skill. Level 4. Captain, mission qualified, age 27. The day finally comes. Your first solo flight in an actual B-2 Spirit is nothing like the T-6 5 years ago. There's no adrenaline spike, no shaking hands after. The instructors have trained the fear out of the moment on purpose, because fear is what makes pilots rush checklists on an aircraft that punishes rushing. What you feel instead is a strange, settled quiet, alone in a cockpit built for two, flying a shape that doesn't look like it should stay in the air at all, silent in a way that still unsettles you even now that you understand why. When you land, there's no big ceremony. There's a debrief, a logbook entry, and then a name change that matters more than anything printed on it. You are folded into the 393rd Bomb Squadron, the Tigers, activated as a B-2 unit in August of 1993, and still, to this day, the only operational bomb squadron flying this aircraft in the entire United States Air Force. Not one of several, the only one. You walk into the squadron building and see the patch on the wall and understand, slowly, what that single fact actually means for the life you're about to live. There is no backup squadron. If the 393rd can't fly the mission does not fly. You understand, standing in that squadron room for the first time, that you have just joined something with no depth behind it, no bench, no reserves, just you, and roughly 100 other pilots holding up the entire weight of a capability the country treats as a strategic guarantee it never has to think about. Some ranks give you a rifle. This one gives you a fraction of a country's deterrent, and expects you to carry it like it's ordinary, to go home afterward, mow the lawn, argue about dinner, as if the thing you just flew wasn't real. Level 5. Major, line pilot, age 33, somewhere in a filing system you will never personally see. Your name now sits inside a program most civilians have never heard of, and most airmen only half understand. The Personnel Reliability Program, governed by an Air Force manual, DAFMAN 13-501, that decides who is allowed near nuclear-capable systems and who isn't. You are designated critical. It sounds like praise. It functions like surveillance. Financial trouble, a bad prescription interaction, a rough patch in your marriage, a DUI that happens to a friend 2 states away and somehow lands on your file. Any of it can get you decertified, pulled from flying status, not as punishment, the regulation is explicit about that distinction, but as a precaution, a protective measure applied to you the way it's applied to anyone in your position. You start noticing that you monitor yourself the way the program monitors you. You watch your own drinking at a wedding, you watch what you say at a dinner party when the conversation turns political. You watch the version of yourself that other people don't have to watch, because they were never handed the thing you were handed. There's a strange comfort buried in it too, once you sit with it long enough. The jet you fly can end a war before it starts. Somebody, somewhere, decided a long time ago that a person who might do that has to be provably, continuously, boringly stable. No drama, no headlines, no cracks anyone can point to later. You start to understand nuclear stewardship not as a badge, but as a leash you agreed to wear, and mostly forget you're wearing, until the day something reminds you. The trust that lets you carry the weapon is heavier than the weapon. Level 6. Major, Instructor and Evaluator. Age 35. You are no longer only flying, you're teaching someone else how to survive a mission that lasts longer than most people's workdays put together, stacked end to end for 2 full days. The Air Force has flown documented B-2 combat sorties out of Whiteman lasting more than 30 hours round trip, missions to Diego Garcia and back during the early operations in Afghanistan, crews leaving home and not returning until the day after tomorrow, and now it's your job to prepare a younger captain for a sortie shaped like that one. You explain the parts nobody puts in the manual. How to ration sleep in a 2-person cockpit with no relief crew waiting in the back. How to manage a body that has been sitting for 18 hours and has another 12 to go. How boredom on a combat mission is its own kind of danger because boredom is where mistakes quietly move in and make themselves comfortable. You talk about the small rituals pilots invent to survive the hours. The meals packed and eaten in silence. The conversations that trail off because there's nothing left to say at hour 20. The strange loneliness of being fully awake next to another person for a day and a half straight. You watch the younger pilot absorb it the way you once did, wide-eyed and slightly disbelieving that any of this is real, asking the same questions you asked at his age, and you remember being on the other side of that exact conversation, in that exact chair. Instruction, you realize, is just the debt of experience finally being repaid to somebody who hasn't earned the scar tissue yet, and repaying it is the closest thing this world has to tenderness. Level 7, Lieutenant Colonel, age 39. The title changes again. Assistant Director of Operations now. A real staff role documented in officer service records across every bomb squadron at Whiteman, and for the first time, a decision you make costs another pilot something real, not their life. Something smaller and somehow harder to sit with, a training slot they wanted, a schedule that keeps them from their kids' recital, a flight evaluation you have to fail because failing it is the honest answer and the honest answer is the only one your signature is worth anything attached to. You used to be the one affected by decisions like this, now you're the one making them, and there's no manual that tells you how to feel afterward, no simulator for the particular discomfort of telling a good pilot he isn't ready yet. You start eating lunch alone more often. Not out of loneliness exactly, out of the slow growing understanding that the closer you get to those decisions, the fewer people can be fully honest with you, and the fewer people you can be fully honest with in return, because honesty and rank have started to complicate each other in ways nobody warned you about at the academy. Command begins in this room, quietly, long before anyone officially calls you a commander. It begins the first time you choose the mission over the person and go home and have to live with having made the right call. Authority doesn't arrive as a promotion, it arrives as a distance you didn't ask for, one lunch table at a time. Level 8, Colonel, age 44. You command the 509th Bomb Wing, every B-2 crew at Whiteman, every maintainer, every sortie, the entire fleet of America's stealth bombers, fewer than 20 aircraft in existence, all of it now sitting somewhere underneath your name on an organizational chart you didn't design and can't fully see the edges of. You are responsible for every flight that leaves this base. You are present for almost none of them. Somewhere in your first year in command, it hits you mid-briefing. You used to be the hands on the controls, and now you are the reason the controls exist for someone else to hold. You read accident reports differently now, not as a pilot studying a mistake to avoid, but as a commander looking for the exact point in the chain where a decision of yours might have prevented it. You sign readiness statements with a pen that feels heavier than it should, certifying that a fleet you can't personally inspect every inch of is fit to carry weapons you personally used to carry. The jet you flew for a decade becomes, without you quite noticing the transition, something you manage instead of something you do. You still know the checklists cold. Your body has simply stopped needing them, and some nights that absence feels less like mastery and more like loss. Level 9, Brigadier General, age 48. A star gets pinned to your shoulder, and somewhere in the paperwork that follows, a biography gets written about you in the third person. A strange thing to read about your own life, seeing yourself described the way you once described other people's careers to junior officers. It lists your flight hours the way a headstone lists a birth and death date. Accurate, final, closed. Command pilot, B-2 Spirit, past tense, even though you're not dead. Even though you could probably still fly the jet if anyone let you. Nobody's going to let you. Generals don't fly combat sorties. Generals attend the ceremony where the plane you used to fly gets rolled out for someone younger. And they clap, and they mean it, and something in them also quietly grieves. A private, unannounceable kind of mourning for a version of themselves that technically still exists but will never again be given the keys. You start collecting small proof that the old life was real. A patch, a photo, a logbook you keep in a drawer instead of a display case, because displaying it would mean admitting it's over. The cockpit was never really the destination. It only felt that way because you were still inside it. Level 10, General, Chief of Staff of the Air Force. You are the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and every version of that title, going back to the year the Air Force became its own service, has belonged to a pilot first. That fact is not decoration. It's tradition treated as a requirement nobody bothered to write into law because nobody ever thought they'd need to. You command near 700,000 people, active duty, guard reserve civilians, and almost none of them will ever see you near an aircraft again. You advise the president. You sit on councils that decide things too large to fit inside a cockpit. You are, on paper, the most powerful pilot the Air Force has ever produced. And here is the thing nobody tells you on the day you solo a T-6 at 22. The summit of this entire climb is not more sky. It's the complete and permanent absence of it. Every rank you climbed took you further from the thing that made you want to climb in the first place. You spent your whole career being trusted with an aircraft, And the reward for that trust at the very top is a chair, a staff, and a title that remembers you flew but no longer needs you to. The top of the mountain has no altitude at all. The last image is there is a hallway in a house you don't spend much time in anymore, and on a desk at the end of it sits a small model of a T-6, a Texan II, the same aircraft you soloed alone at 22, scuffed at the base where a much younger hand used to pick it up and put it back down without thinking. You don't pick it up now, you just pass it most evenings on your way to somewhere else, briefcase in hand, mind already 3 meetings ahead. Outside, once in a great while, something flies low and fast over the house, gone before the sound of it finishes arriving, and you don't look up to check what it is. You already know.